Republican National Convention marked another low point in this country's drift away from democracy. And we're not talking about the lies, distortions, and bombast contained in the speeches. We're talking about the police state-style actions of local law enforcement and the FBI. Journalists, including Democracy Now!'s Amy Goodman and two of her producers, were manhandled and arrested by police without due cause. And the treatment of protesters who never even made it into the streets was even worse. And as usual, the national media are being dead silent about it. Welcome to Collateral.
There's absolutely no justification for you to come into my home with a submachine gun pointed at me and, keep me there for close to 45 minutes.
Just before the start of the convention, the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, in conjunction with the FBI, burst into a conversion center and also several homes of would-be protesters to execute a dubious search warrant for bomb-making materials. The raids came with guns drawn, completely terrorizing the inhabitants of the houses.
I mean, it was obviously an effort to intimidate us, just like the ridiculous show of force that was used.
They all had huge guns.
Yeah, they all had guns with flashlights on them. They were in SWAT gear or whatever.
It looks like Cobb.
They were screaming.
I mean, they came in here like they were prepared to have a showtime.
Exactly. They were using nicknames like the Terminator and the Executioner.
Yeah.
What?
So what was the basis for the search warrant? Well, apparently it was information provided by confidential informants planted inside the protesters' ranks months before by Minnesota's Joint Terrorism Task Force. Now, the task force's pattern is well established by now. Plant informants who suggest violent actions, then use those suggestions as probable cause against those who were infiltrated. The police claim they conducted these raids to head off disruptive activities before they occurred. Planning to block traffic and peacefully disabling buses are legitimate forms of political protest. They're not crimes warranting stormtrooper-style raids. If the police have evidence, as they claim they do, that protesters were planning to do something worse, where is that evidence?
When we were actually cuffed and laying on the ground and being ID'd and whatever, we all asked several times to see a warrant.
And they wouldn't show it to you until
No, they wouldn't show us.
A search of one of the homes raided turned up things like empty bottles, a rusty machete, some metal pipes, hatchets, some lighter fluid, stuff a lot of us have in our basements. But where is the evidence that these things were going to be used in the commission of a serious crime? Ultimately, the evidence, such as it is the FBI informant's claims that these protesters were going to attack airports in St. Paul, kidnap RNC delegates, and throw firebombs at police. We're expected to believe that those arrested, none of whom, by the way, have any prior history of violent crimes, were somehow planning to do this in a city filled with thousands of riot cops? With a rusty machete and some metal pipes?
And I think what it really is designed to do is to send a message to people who agree with some of the viewpoints of people organizing activity, and to say, you know what, you can write an email, it's okay to write a letter, to vote, but don't go out in the street.
Right.
Don't organize public activity, because, do you want us bursting into your house? Do you want to be associated with people who are getting arrested?
Right.
It's designed to somehow say that these aren't citizens engaged in the exercise of political freedom, but that they're kooks, they're freaks, they're dangerous, stay away from them.
Police and FBI informants are often dishonest, and they also have an incentive to see cases go forward because they're paid by law enforcement to provide useful information. The Ramsey County Sheriff's Office was just embroiled in a corruption scandal involving one of the sheriff's close friends, who not only acted as a confidential informant for the department, but who took part in police actions like arrests, searches, and seizures despite having no law enforcement training. So the sheriff's friend, who was basically impersonating a police officer with the sheriff's permission and the department's permission, was recently convicted of theft of government property when he was caught during a sting operation.
I'm sure you all understand the legalistic drawback to pre-crime methodology.
Here we go again.
Look, I'm not with the ACLU on this, Jeff. But let's not kid ourselves. We are arresting individuals who have broken no law.
But they will. The commission of the crime itself is absolute metaphysics. The pre-conks see the future, and they're never wrong.
But it's not the future if you stop it. Isn't that a fundamental paradox?
Yes, it is.
If it wasn't plain to you before, it should be now that we're in the realm of thought crime. 8 people, they're being called the RNC 8, have been charged with conspiracy to riot in furtherance of terrorism, an incredibly flimsy thing. They could face prison sentences of several years if this farce goes forward. And if this doesn't go forward, as it appears it should not, well then it'll likely fade from public consciousness, even in the small way that it's entered it. We'll be able to chalk up another victory against civil liberties for the fascists in charge. Anyone who cares to can easily confirm the facts of this disturbing case. The national media apparently can't be bothered to cover the story because to them, the police state of mind in the U.S. is old news. But there's extraordinary coverage on this in several places on the internet. It's not hard to figure out what's going on here. The only question is, what are people going to do about it? Hope to see you next week.